All right, here we go. So, it's Brian Zeller. I'm here to do my final for technology in the public sector. My final that I chose to do was CAD integration for the South Fort Myers Fire Department, which is a fire department that I obviously created for the purpose of this final. CAD is computer aided dispatch, which we use at my department and actually every department around here that I'm aware of on our MDCs, which are mobile data computers. Computer aided dispatch is something that I had written about in several of my research assignments this semester. And it's basically just computer aided dispatch on your computers that help you get to calls, communicate, everything like that. It's basically the new wave technology. Police departments have had them for, from what I could find, a lot longer than most fire departments, and there is actual large amount of fire departments across the country that have just been recently getting them. I've been at my department for 5.5 years now, and we've had them as long as I've been here. Not even sure when exactly they swapped over. I want to say probably 10 or more so years ago. But I found a lot of big cities and big departments that have just started to switch over to it. So I was very surprised to find that. So it's not as common as we think, but majority of departments around here have them. So here we go. Here we go. All right, perfect. So abstract. So like I said, computer aided dispatch, wave of technology assisting firefighters in providing a more efficient means to arrive on scene of a call. And obviously that delves more into communication and location, closest unit for calls, things of that nature. So it's just a little quote that I found. It, like I said, originated in law enforcement. It's been limited because law enforcement dispatching procedures were much different than that of the fire service. So over the recent years, the CAD vendors have been actively engaged with public safety organizations like the IAFC and the Association of Public Safety Communication Officers. So since I've been here, we are now on our second wave of CAD, which is a new system called Hexagon, which has actually worked out fairly well. Obviously, every new system has its growing pains, and every first responder doesn't like change. But for the most part, it's been a pretty good system that's working pretty well. So it's worked well, like I said. So we've enjoyed it thus far. We've probably had it for, I'd say, probably 6 or more months, maybe. And then I said, as the fire chief for the South Fort Myers Fire Department, I've ultimately decided to bring the innovative technology to our employees and citizens. The CAD software will provide many benefits to not only the employees of the department, but will better serve and provide a better service to our citizens. So, taking the approach as a fire chief that is choosing to use this technology now for to better his department. All right, so three other jurisdictions that I found articles on. And like I said, these range from large scale to small scale, which I thought was very interesting. Even in early as 2008, San Diego County opted to improve their system. Quote that I found in the article was in an action that will improve communication and awareness for first responders during wildfires and other natural disasters. San Diego County Board of Supervisors today accepted two grants totaling 164,000 for the installation of 70 MDCs on Cal firefighting rigs in the backcountry. So you would think San Diego County, I don't know a whole lot about the department, but I would think it's a pretty big department that is kind of up to the forefront of technology. But, like I said, they just got this as early as 2 years ago. And their big thing was wildfires. They felt like it gave them a better advantage working with wildfires because they're working with so many different apparatuses on a wildfire. Another one I found was Catoosa County, which was in Georgia. They also became a part of the revolutionary wave, as they said in their article. In April 2020, they were in the middle of a really bad storm. Um, and one of their commissioners pointed out that due to extreme flooding, down power lines and trees, and even a tornado, it taxed their communication system, and that's why they felt like they had a system overload and they needed an upgrade. So they ultimately went to the CAD system. Uh, Here we go. Sorry, I can't see the very bottom here because of the screen castify thing. And then I found another one in California that upgraded a new system after 30 years. They didn't say I couldn't find anything on what the old system was. I don't know if it was a paper system or just radio or what they used, but they actually just upgraded to a new CAD, which they didn't say the company, but it kind of sounded to me like Hexagon, which we're using, which seems to be pretty popular around the country. So, all right. So, some alternatives and practices. So, with any new form of technology or integration in the public sector, there must be plans in place for training and best practices. So, I kind of took this model from how my department went about implementing the Hexagon system, and it was actually not only our department but the entire county went to it, including EMS and all the fire departments. So, even though we're all different entities, we all went to the same system because our dispatch is all the same. So, it's easier for them to work with all of us. Um, even in I wrote, it is important that even with the digital age that we live in now, we're always prepared for the event of technological failure. So I spent part of the paper just talking about plans for technological failure, and everything I put in there was basically stuff that we already follow in my department. We have map books in all our trucks. We also have systems on our phone in place where if things go down, we could use our phone for call info and call type. And we have two different forms called Active 911 and Tablet Command that'll send us the call. So we can also use that if our CAD is down. And just here I talked about communication on CAD will always be an upgraded form of streamlined communication. However, in the event of a system failure, it is acceptable and should be known that direct radio communication between dispatch and other apparatuses should be utilized. Excuse me. I think part of the thing with our CAD system is people, especially newer people, aren't as comfortable talking on the radio because you can do the vast majority of it on the CAD, which is great. But I think it's just one of those things that still radio communication needs to be practiced and trained on constantly too, just in case a lot of these things that you can't use your CAD for. Sometimes people don't even know the proper form to, hey, I need more call info. What are the steps to do that because I can't get on my CAD? Oh, every time. All right, consequences. So consequences, I kind of wrote in there about two different ways. Consequences that I would do for employees that aren't following me as the chief to implement this, but also consequences for our department. So I just talked about how this brings the department up to speed. You know, nobody ever wants to work for the department that's kind of behind in the times. And I think we've all been there in some aspect, whether it's technology or tools or whatever, whether you're a police officer, EMS, fire departments, we've all had those things at our department where we're like, man, we're just really behind. So I talked about this is one of those big things. I know the city of Cape Coral, I believe, they just got CAD in the last couple of years, and they used to have printed out MapQuest directions when they would get a call. So they're finally up to speed, which is good. So while we understand the learning curve involved in new technology can be overwhelming and steep, ample time will be provided also with remediation for employees who need it to bring them up to speed. So I wrote about this more in the paper, but I just spoke about how we were given the Hexagon and our new CAD, which is called Hexagon, and we were giving spare MDCs that we were allowed to just kind of walk around the station, click on, and just mess around. It was in like a beta test mode. So I talked about how we would do the same thing, and we also had testing on it throughout. So if you were showing signs that you were kind of weak in it, we would sit down and work with you. So so that worked out pretty good. Implementation. So just some things I touched on here. So obviously no training's perfect, but you got to do the best you can. You have, my department, we have close to 100 different people. So everybody learns a different way. So you just have to do what you can. And, hopefully the masses can get everybody up to speed. If, you got a room full of 10 guys and 8 of them walk out with feeling like they're an expert on it, they can bring the other 2 guys up to speed ultimately. And I said, that we would do this a month prior to going live, which is what my department did. About a month or 2 out, we started working on it. We did written instructions, PowerPoint presentations. Everybody has to learn at their own pace, so you kind of give them the ability to do that by giving them the spare MDCs for them to work on. You're allowing them to work at their own pace. Without proper assessment, it's difficult to find the new technology and if it's actually helping. So we also talked about we were real big on our times to seeing if this would help because this new system's supposed to put us on scene without us having to hit a button. You're basically supposed to roll up, and it's just supposed to hit that you're on scene by your geographical location. That's kind of been hit or miss whether it works or not. But with a department that has no CAD and now is implementing CAD, their response time should be completely different, whether they're better or worse, or maybe even just accuracy. How many guys on a radio and probably these small counties or rural areas that are just, hey, we're on scene, and they're not even on scene yet. So maybe you're getting a more accurate assessment. And then maybe they need to build more stations or move trucks or move manning or whatever. So but yeah, so cross checking response times, like I said, response times should absolutely get better. Um, and like I said, just here, I just said that this would thrust us into the new wave of technology for the South Fort Myers Fire Department. So that's the end. Here's my resources that you can also see in my final paper. So I enjoyed this. It was cool. I liked, like I said, I did several research assignments on the CAD, which I never really thought about CAD. And just kind of when I got here, we had it, and I didn't really think nothing of it. But it's crazy to think that there's a lot of departments out there that don't even have it. And like I said, some really big departments that you're very surprised by. So, but yeah, it was very interesting, and I enjoyed it. All right. Thank you very much.